Imagine running a massive mining business where you pull a highly prized commodity out of the ground and then intentionally refuse to sell a single pound of it. That is exactly the story we are looking at today on Earnings Unscripted. It is June 9, 2026, and Uranium Energy Corp, ticker UEC, just dropped a very weird third quarter update.
Update is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, Susie. They basically released an operational pamphlet that the market absolutely hated. I mean, the stock was already down roughly 23% for the quarter, but today it just completely fell off a cliff. Heavy, steady selling pressure from the opening bell. It closed down over 15%, right around $10.65.
Ouch. And just a very quick note before we get into that wreckage. This is strictly our personal opinion and absolutely not financial advice, so please do your own research. But looking at the release, Miro, I kind of get the panic. Their uranium production actually shrank roughly 30% compared to last quarter, down to just 32,195 pounds.
Right. And it gets weirder. They completely omitted the income statement from today's filing. We literally have zero data on top-line revenue or net income for the quarter. They just gave us the cost metrics and the production numbers, which, those numbers were rough. Total cost per pound surged almost 24% to $54.61.
You know, I usually find that leaving the revenue blank on your report card is a fantastic confidence builder.
Oh, completely. But there is a very real physical reason for this unit cost explosion. You have to remember how dormant the U.S. nuclear industry has been. It was asleep for 15 years. They could not just go hire mining contractors to expand their well fields because that ecosystem literally does not exist anymore.
So wait, what did they do? Just wing it?
Sort of. They had to build the company that builds the mine. They nearly doubled their operations staff over the last year to almost 200 people just to bring construction entirely in-house.
That is actually a crazy hidden cost of this whole nuclear renaissance. They're absorbing an entire lost generation of labor.
Yeah, and then you add the government timelines. The CEO pointed out it took 14 years of brutal permitting and geology just to get their Burke Hollow project to produce its very first drop of recovered uranium this quarter. 14 years. And right now they have other fully built facilities just sitting idle, waiting on backlogged state regulators to literally just stamp the final paperwork.
Wait, so the massive drop in output, it wasn't a geology problem. It's just pure bureaucracy?
Exactly. High fixed payroll costs dividing into artificially lower output. Your per pound cost metrics look like a total disaster, but the actual rocks are fine.
Geez, and their response to all this chaos was just to freeze. They literally held their physical inventory flat at roughly 1.4 million pounds. Zero physical spot sales. They're just using their giant, almost $500 million cash pile to play a game of chicken with the global nuclear market.
Unhedged arrogance. That's exactly what it is. But I mean, if you think prices are going higher, you don't sell the bottom.
Fair. All right, let's get into the details, because sitting on your hands while your tax bill spikes requires some serious nerve.
Yeah, so about that tax bill, you know I love reading state revenue guidelines.
Of course you do.
I mean it, because Wyoming just handed them a prospective 4-year tax reality check. The Department of Revenue instituted this new higher industry factor for valuations, and it is locked through 2029.
Okay, so this is not just a weird quarterly blip.
No, let me say that better. That is the entire problem. Their royalty and tax per pound jumped over 21%, from roughly $6.67 up to $8.11. So that is a permanently higher baseline on their cash costs for the next 4 years.
Wow. All right, so you have production down 30%, taxes up 20%, and they are refusing to sell a single pound of uranium to cover the difference.
Right, except the non-cash costs exploded too. That line item almost doubled from $4.48 to $7.92 per pound. Management claims it's just timing and depreciation, but when you stack that on top of the state tax hike, they are burning a lot of margin just to maintain optionality.
Which brings us back to that massive, almost $500 million cash cushion they're going to need every penny of it if they're just going to sit on their hands while costs go up.
Except they're not sitting on their hands. They're completely reshaping the company to align with the government. This is actually my favorite part of the filing.
Oh, you mean the real estate map shuffle?
Exactly. So UEC has this subsidiary, the U.S. Uranium Refining and Conversion Corp. They're planning to build a major conversion facility, and they explicitly broadened and revised their short list of candidate locations strictly to match the U.S. Department of Energy strategic priorities.
Right, the Nuclear Dominance 3x33 campaign. I saw that in the notes. So they are essentially looking at a map of where the federal government wants infrastructure and just planting a flag there to get the grant money?
It is blatant, and honestly, it's brilliant. They're clearly angling for those Defense Production Act frameworks. You have to remember what the CEO said on the call. He literally stated, quote, "The current key bottleneck in our mind and in the market really remains a shortage of sufficient domestic conversion."
So it's not even about digging the uranium out of the ground anymore. It's about processing it.
Precisely. They have almost 1.5 million pounds of yellowcake sitting in inventory. But until the U.S. has the domestic capability to convert that into actual fuel for data centers or national defense, it's just expensive yellow rock. By aligning with the Department of Energy, they stop being just a commercial mining company.
They become a national security asset.
Yeah, which is a much easier way to fund your structurally higher cash costs.
It's kind of wild, though, when you step back and look at it. We're talking about a critical mineral subplot here because they're even tying their Paraguay titanium and vanadium asset into this whole narrative of rare earth independence.
Right, it's a secondary narrative, but it's a fantastic hook for a potential spin-off later. I think they're basically building a geopolitical hedge fund disguised as a mining stock.
Geopolitical hedge fund. I really like that framing. But I do have to ask, does any of this actually fix their immediate Q4 problem? Because the market clearly does not care about Paraguay right now. They care about that $54 cost per pound.
Fair point. Well, we should probably look at what management is actually promising for next quarter then, because they made some very big claims about fixing those unit costs.
Yeah, they're basically telling everyone that this $54 unit cost is a complete illusion.
Well, actually, it is just an artifact of the bottleneck. The CFO noted that those new header houses at Christensen Ranch, plus the Burke Hollow facility, they will finally run a full 90-day cycle in Q4.
Right, so volume spikes and your fixed costs get absorbed better.
Exactly. You divide that same payroll by a much larger pile of uranium. The math fixes itself. Though, look, you do need to watch how they report next quarter. They are quietly trying to pivot to an adjusted EBITDA metric.
To smooth out the equity book swings.
Yeah, they are eating these $90 million mark-to-market swings on their investments. So they're essentially building a reporting fence to isolate the pure mining cash flow.
Classic narrative management. But honestly, zooming out, this whole report feels like a massive reality check for the AI crowd. Everyone just assumes we can plug new data centers into a limitless nuclear grid tomorrow.
You absolutely cannot. The CEO is very blunt on this. He said, quote, "Let that sink in for a moment. It took 14 years to bring a new uranium mine online."
Wow. 14 years from finding rocks to actually pumping recovery fluid. It really proves you can have endless capital, you can have government cheerleading, but you just cannot shortcut the paperwork.
No. You just have to outlast it. And that is UEC right now, weaponizing nearly $800 million in total liquidity just to sit comfortably in a waiting room.
Weaponized waiting. That is the ultimate flex. Let us see if those Q4 volumes actually show up to justify the wait. Thanks for listening, everyone.
See you next time.
If you want these earnings deep dives to just show up for you, maybe tap follow on your podcast app. We actually use AI to help generate the show and sift through the filings, which is exactly how we spotted that wild 14-year mine delay today. But real humans always guide the final story. We would love to hear what tickers you want us to look at next, so drop a note to earningsunscripted@datamadness.ca or grab the X link in the show notes.
Catch you on the next call.